name's Steve Faust. Got it. Recording in progress. Steve Faust with 3J Consulting, and with me, you've met her via email, but not in person, is Natalie Knowles. Natalie, you want to say hello? Oh, just a wave.
Oh yeah, hi, I'm Natalie. Nice to get some faces and see mine after all the emails.
Hi, Natalie.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully this will work like I want it to. Give me 1 second here. It's not going to work, so I think, Natalie, you might have to do it tonight.
Yeah, I was wondering.
You thought that might happen? I have it in Google Slides, but I don't know how to make it big and have my Zoom up as well.
Yeah, okay. Let me get that situated.
So before we get started, I'll say it again in a little bit. Thanks to each and every one of you for the great work you did, reaching out to community members and meeting with folks. We really got a great response, I think, and a good basis for us to start talking about our vision. Hopefully, you all got a chance to page through the document that we prepared that summarizes what we heard. We also sent you a compilation so you could actually go through all the comments if that is something that you like to do.
Steve, I didn't see the document summary. I saw the compilation. I mean, I didn't see the most recent document summary.
I believe, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the agenda and the summary went out together. Or no, and the compilation.
I got the compilation.
The memo, page 5 of the packet is the summary that he's speaking of, all part of the packet.
I'll take a look again.
Yeah, you should have had like a short, maybe 3-page summary, I think, where we pulled out. So anyway, we'll walk through it now. Anyway, let's go to the next slide, Natalie. So tonight what we're going to do is Natalie's going to talk about what we heard in our community engagement efforts, and then I will walk you through some different. We'll talk about the different forms that a community vision can take, and together we'll kind of figure out what we think makes sense for Carleton. And then we'll just talk a little bit about the upcoming Envision Carleton Summit that's coming up on June 1st. Next steps, and then we'll wrap up hopefully around 7:30. Next slide. I think this is you, Natalie, so go ahead at your own speed.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So yeah, as I was saying, it's nice to meet some people virtually. I hope I get to meet some of you in person soon here.
You know what, Natalie? I'm sorry to interrupt. Maybe for your benefit, we should go around the room again. It's been a while, the virtual and physical room, and just have people introduce themselves. Shirley, you want to get us started?
Hi, I'm Shirley Ward Mullen. I'm Council President in the City of Carleton.
And Susie?
Oh, you're muted, Susie.
Yeah.
Of course I am. Of course I'm muted. I'm Susie Turrell. I'm on the Planning Commission, and I'm also excited about making some change in Carleton's plan. Thank you.
Catherine? Or Linda? All right. Oh, there's Catherine. Connecting to audio. There we go. Oh, back on mute. Well, let's go ahead to the folks in the room, please.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was trying to unmute and I was unmuting at the wrong place. Linda Watkins, Carleton.
You accidentally muted again, Linda, just before you finished.
That might be just as well. Thank you, guys. And I will keep my mouth shut now.
Okay. Let's go to the folks in the room.
Carrie Wiebe.
John Schmidt. Anthony Stewart, and I'm glad to know it's Turrell and not Terrell, Susie.
You always learn things when you do introductions.
Always.
Prevent yourself from making mistakes. All right. Sorry to interrupt you, Natalie. Why don't you go ahead?
All good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I've been working alongside Steve. I kind of jumped in the middle a little bit here. I just started at 3J in March. So just kind of hopped right in. I've been to Carleton though, so I'm excited to work on this project. And so tonight I'm just gonna kind of summarize the engagement efforts so far and talk kind of about the forums that we've used. Okay, so first of all, yeah, thank you again to everyone for being here and for those who supported a community conversation or held one over the past couple of months. Many organizations, groups, and friends have been engaged and have given their input on the future. Then
We did turn the volume
We
up.
can't
We're having
understand her.
difficulty understanding her. Sorry, Natalie, we're having difficulty understanding your voices.
yeah, that's okay. Yeah, take your time.
Kind of in a tunnel or something, so we're gonna pump you up a little bit here and
Natalie, make sure you stay close to your computer because sometimes if you move a little bit away, it has that effect too.
Okay. All right, let me know if it's better.
I hear you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so there's been about 10 formal conversations held with local organizations such as the Yamhill Community Action Partnership, Bridging Unidos, and the Friends of, correct me how to say this, Yamhalas Trail. So those conversations have helped to guide the framework for many of the key findings that we're going to discuss in a little bit here. And then additionally, the online survey, which is interconnected with those conversations. You can see here as of yesterday, I believe, there's been about 154 responses and still growing, which is great. And the last thing that we just initiated is sending out just under 1,600 mailers to all the Carleton addresses to promote the upcoming Envision Carleton Summit. It also has the information about the project through the website link on it. So hopefully that'll kind of get us a last push on maybe some of those survey responses. So I just want to highlight a couple quotes that I thought were interesting from the survey. So you know, these kind of quotes helped us get to where we are now in terms of the key findings, and I was really excited to see really thoughtful responses from the residents and the visitors of Carleton. And so I'll just give you a second to read those, but yeah. Okay. So then again, the online survey, which was intertwined with the community conversations, this is a word cloud that we were able to bring together from the responses. For those of you not familiar, the smaller words are less frequently mentioned, but still mentioned at least 3 times. And the bigger the words, the more they were mentioned. And so this was specifically in response to what makes Carleton special today and what should we strive to preserve or enhance. So among survey and community conversation participants, there are several dominant themes that emerged regarding what they liked about Carleton. You can see here specifically the small town atmosphere and its associated caring community, the charm of downtown and the local businesses, and the historical buildings are just a few of some of the commonly enjoyed aspects of Carleton. Okay, so here's kind of our take on getting some key findings from the feedback. So these following themes emerged from the community outreach activities, and each is accompanied by a comment that sort of exemplifies the theme or explains it further. So each theme is meant to encompass either a finding related to how respondents feel about Carleton today, or what they would like to see preserved or changed in the future. So yeah, I'll just kind of read through them so that people have time to digest. So the first one was, again, to preserve the small town atmosphere, specifically the community, the safety, and the family-friendly opportunities that come along with that. Second is to facilitate community togetherness. So there was input that this could best be done through events and activities in the city, increasing walkability, and further investment in schools, infrastructure, and growth. Third is to support and expand the businesses in Carleton. So the downtown area and the businesses are thoroughly loved. There's a lot of local spots that people really enjoy. And people also mentioned, though, that with the growth of Carleton, that there's hope for the expansion of business types, specifically a grocery store, which, as someone who's visited Carleton, I I can understand that would be a nice thing to have. And some other examples would be a pharmacy and just like some additional retail. Fourth is to promote enhancements to infrastructure. So this is kind of a mixture of pedestrian amenities, fixing sidewalks, bike lanes, like making the pedestrian environment a little bit more welcoming. There was also the mention of rerouting Highway 47 to reduce traffic, and then some of the physical hardscape improvements, like I mentioned, fixing sidewalks and streets, and kind of just bringing Carleton into the future with the growth. And then the last one that we kind of pulled together was to conserve historic features and culture. So this is specifically through the historical buildings and features in town. And a lot of people had good input about how that could be done, specifically through architectural guidance for future development, and just kind of maintaining that downtown aesthetic that Carleton currently has.
Natalie, if I could jump in for a second, just to remind everyone, all this comes, that survey, these were all open-ended questions. So you can imagine there's a lot of content. People, are able to write their responses, and we kind of go in, whether using technology or other means, and kind of tag comments that are like in some way. And then eventually kind of say, okay, what are people saying the most? And we identify those as themes. So I will say it is not a science. It is a little bit more of an art. But there is some numeric, aspect to it. But it is also an art and somewhat subjective in terms of us trying to turn these open-ended kind of narrative responses to these questions into themes that are more digestible. And this is our first attempt, and in a little bit we'll have a chance to talk about this a little bit more. Sorry, Natalie, go ahead.
No problem. Thanks, Steve. Okay. So in addition to kind of those larger themes, there were several questions that kind of got to the main point of what do you love about Carleton today, and what can be better in the future. And so these were some of the highlights that we saw in terms of things that people really love about Carleton as it is. And so we see a lot of those reoccurring verbiage that is in the themes. So small town atmosphere, that caring community, the downtown history, but some other ones that popped up as well is the proximity of Carleton to places like McMinnville. So that did occur as sort of its own theme in terms of being able to access some more of those amenities that Carleton doesn't currently have. And then the green space is also really popular among respondents, specifically the park and the trail and the pool. The pool is very well loved. And then walkability and sort of the rural agricultural aesthetic popped up as well. So then on the other side of things is, some of the ideas that people wanted to see Carleton as it grows. And so some of these, again, have mentioned, but infrastructure maintenance improvements, right? So kind of just bringing the city along with that growth and helping it look its best and be ready for more people and more bigger community. Improve traffic conditions, as you know. Another idea that was brought to the table was a community center or a town hall as sort of a gathering place for Carleton residents. And then the more diverse business types, like we discussed. And then increasing recreation options, although there are ones that are loved, like the park and the trail. People want to see that grow and that connectivity continue. And then so another one that is a concern for many people right now, will continue to be an issue, is growing unaffordability. And there was a specific note about housing and the water costs in Carleton. And so those are things that we want to note as we continue this conversation. So now is we're going to kind of like open the floor for some discussion, Steve, and
yeah. Yeah, thanks, Natalie. So we, I don't know how many of you folks were able to look through or interested in looking through the compilation of those comments, but we want to open it up here and see if you identify, do some of the themes that we identified resonate with you? Are there key kind of things that are missing? Having reviewed the summary or the compilation, are there any other things that jumped out at you that you think are important to note that we haven't touched on today? So we want to open it up and see if anyone wants to go ahead and start and kind of give their impression of what they read or what they heard. Catherine, why don't you go ahead? Go ahead. We can't hear you, Catherine. I don't know if you're saying anything. It doesn't look like you're on mute. Must be having some sort of technical difficulties there. Well, Catherine, if you get that figured out, we will go right to you. Shirley, did you have something you wanted to talk about?
Actually, most or all actually of these themes that are presented in this summary came up in the outreach meetings that I conducted. So I think it captures it well. I would say there's only one other comment, but it wasn't like a general theme, but it was one comment that I received that this person believes that the city, whether it's through the city or the business association, that we need to focus on really doing a real branding effort of our city to attract the right kinds of businesses and promote tourism, that type of thing.
Great. Natalie, could you scroll back up to the themes just so we have those in front of us? So branding and promoting the city. Great. Anyone else?
One other thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Other comments, not about changing, but what folks like about Carleton and want to see, continue is the our police department and community policing.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
That folks really like the interaction between our police officers and our community with the youth, et cetera. And just, want to see that continue, to have our own local police department and have it focus on community policing.
Great, thank you. All right, anyone else online, based or in the room based on, do we want to go to the room? Okay, let's go to the room.
Yeah, there's a time lag in the picture here. So kind of to follow up on what Shirley said, one of the things that I heard a number of times with people just talking about developing just a greater sense of neighborliness, kind of pushing the community feeling down into the neighborhoods itself and not just the downtown area. For example, it was mentioned, community neighborhood watches, not to try to catch people, but to actually try to encourage much more interpersonal interactions and relationship building there.
Great. Great. Okay. Other things that you folks either, reflections on what we presented or the compilation, or just things that you heard in your conversations?
I think this captures it well.
Thank you. Catherine, we'll go to you if, yeah.
Do you hear me now?
Yay!
Oh, yes. For some reason, if I hook up my camera and then, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'm really pleased that a lot of what we talked about in our neighborhood meeting is included in this. And I was trying to look up, somebody made a really good point about the businesses, and if I can find it, I'll include that too. But yeah, I'm just saying that is very reflective of our conversations, and especially we had somebody who's grew up here, lived in the house, grew up here, and the affordability thing is a huge issue for her, the people that she grew up with who can't live here anymore. So just want to emphasize that, and I'm really pleased to see that a grocery store is a really important thing to have. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. And yeah, wow, housing affordability is really a challenge everywhere, isn't it? Susie, why don't you go next?
Well, so I talked to people just sort of informally and would just encourage them, hey, will you submit your survey form? So I didn't do a formal gathering because I felt awkward actually writing down other people's ideas. I felt like they should have their own voice.
Okay.
But I did encourage people to think deeply about what they loved and what they wanted to do. And one thing that I saw most of the people would be in the parks. I would see people in the parks, and then in the new subdivision in the JR Meadows that hasn't quite been finished being built, there's a trail there. And I saw lots of people with children riding that trail, and universally they all said, we're so excited that there's a trail here. It would be great to have more. And then just as a side note, just so you're aware, I don't know if you're aware, the Yamhalis Trail is not built. Did you know that? So it doesn't exist yet. So although many of us would love to see it built, it's not a reality. It was somehow derailed. So that's just FYI.
That is good information for us to have. Thank you.
Yeah, the concept's loved, but it doesn't actually exist yet.
Gotcha. I was under the impression that there was some sort of like informal trail and that people wanted it to be built with infrastructure.
Yeah, there is an informal partial trail,
Yeah.
but it's not anything that's the Yamhalis. Another item that's I saw it may have been on one of the other slides, but I heard the comments a number of times about something like a teen center, a place for the teens to hang out. And I know that that's kind of wrapped in the community center discussion. And I also heard a couple times senior center. Our seniors don't necessarily have a place really to hang out, and I know that's all kind of wrapped up potentially in that, even though maybe it shouldn't be. I don't know.
No, that's good. I mean, we start off with these conversations and we're intentionally very broad and high level, and what you'll see, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, is we're just going to keep getting more and more detailed as we move from vision to the comprehensive plan goals and policies. So, whether it comes today or as we move along, knowing that, community center is one thing, but identifying the need for teens to have something to do and seniors to have a place to gather, that's great information.
Steve, Shirley,
Yes.
one more thing I wanted to add, just to kind of follow up on what Susie mentioned. I did have a lot of comments about walkability and bicycling throughout Carleton, and having more connectivity throughout the community for biking and walking, through the neighborhoods, or connecting the subdivisions with the neighborhoods, that type of thing.
So would you say that the connectivity is lacking today, and that's something that people want to improve for the future?
I think it's lacking. Susie, you have some thoughts on this too.
Go ahead, Susie. You're on mute.
Muted.
Yeah, no, I definitely have some thoughts on that. What I would like to see is our neighborhoods connected with pedestrian paths. And I'd like to see our safe routes to school actually connected with continuous sidewalks and bicycle lanes. And I'm really excited because we have that started in JR2. We have some pathways that lead directly into the back of the school playing field. But our intersections and our sidewalks are, it's a hazard. And it's a hazard for people with disabilities, and it's a hazard for children, and it's a hazard for families. Typically our sidewalks are narrow. They're not 6-foot sidewalks. And so they're discontinuous. So all of those things, I just feel like there needs to be, and this is going to sound silly, but I'm just going to say it. Our sidewalks and our pedestrian infrastructure needs to be an invitation to walk. So people need to have an invitation to leave their cars in the driveway. I hear lots of people talking about traffic downtown and no parking spaces. And I just feel like that's because people don't feel comfortable walking and they don't feel invited to walk.
I don't think that sounds silly at all. That's a lovely, I think making them inviting to walk, I think that's a lovely idea. Does anyone else in the room have any thoughts to share on either these themes or things that you've been hearing from your friends and neighbors?
Yes, I'd like to share something. This is John Dorner.
Yes.
And you're talking about feeling comfortable walking around town. So I'm walking down to the park, and as I go along, I see this FU American flag K Biden sign flying on a flagpole by his house. And I thought, wow, that's not very inviting. Makes me wonder who's living in there. I hope he doesn't have any guns and ammo. And these days and times, I don't think we need stuff like that in the city to invite people in and around. Thank you. That's all I have to say just right now.
Thanks, John. I know, no matter what your beliefs are, we don't like to see those aren't welcoming types of signs, that type of language in our communities. Freedom of speech, though, is hard. It puts cities in a tough position. But thanks for noting that, because that is certainly an aspect of wanting your community to be welcoming and inviting. Again, if no one else in the room has anything to say, we can move on, but I just wanted to make sure.
I was just going to mention that perhaps it's the dose of realism that I bring, but this entire process needs to be focused, at least at all times, in part, on the fact that money is what makes this all happen. Whether it's sidewalks or bike paths or the Amherst Trail, or having somebody that has a financial incentive to open a grocery store 10 minutes away from Winco or Walmart or Safeway. There are broader themes that are involved in decision-making for having a business in this town. And so behind each and every one of those goals needs to be some sort of, if not community incentive, some form of community messaging that says there's a reason why you pay what is probably going to be 25% or more for that local produce, because you want to have that access, you want to have that connection to community. And I think a lot of people, the ones that I'd spoken to, both in our community conversation and personally, there's a disconnect between those statements of saying, I want affordability in my town, but I don't like it when we have these apartment complexes coming in. I want affordability in my town, but I want everybody to have a 1/3 of an acre lot. I want to have a grocery store here, but I want to be able to pay the same price with my credit card as I pay at Winco in town. There has to be a measure of collaborative realism in how we approach this and ultimately shift the onus back on the community, that if you want these things to be in your community, this is not something that this Carleton Planning Commission, or excuse me, not Planning Commission, that the Comprehensive Plan Group or 3J or the City Council is going to have to do. It is going to have to be inspired and generated, manifested from within the community. And so to somehow embody that collective action that's necessary, if there's some messaging that we could put into this saying, you have to be the change you want Carleton to be. To paraphrase Gandhi. Otherwise, we're just doing a wonderful, thoughtful, but ultimately academic exercise. We need to find a way to communicate to the city that if this is what means is special to you, this is not sustainable without constant citizen involvement and engagement. And when it comes to money things, overpaying and being okay with overpaying, because that's what it means to pay your neighbor who runs the business, as opposed to the Walton family based out of Bentonville, Arkansas. So that's my thoughts.
Thanks. I appreciate your realism for sure. And, you know, this first stage of the process, the vision process, is by its very nature a little Pollyannic, I'll say, you know, a little, it's a vision, right? It's our hopes and dreams for the future of the community. But you're right. As we get into those more details that I spoke about, we need to be realistic with what our goals and policies are and make sure there's a path to achieving them. You know, I've been working with the city of North Plains for a number of years now, and they've always wanted a grocery store so they don't have to drive to Hillsborough. So it's pretty near Hillsborough for those who don't know, on Highway 26 corridor. And they worked and found out, talked to grocery stores, found out what they need, which is usually we need X number of rooftops, right? And X number of houses in order to bring a grocery store. Fortunately for them, but there's also kind of newer smaller grocery stores that are emerging that are an option for communities too. But you're right, it's taken them years to get to the point where they don't have it yet, but they're on their way to getting it. Same with, I really appreciate your comments about housing. Lots of communities I work in, talk about it's the American dream, right? The house on the lot with the yard, and everybody, I think most people do want that, but unfortunately not everyone can afford it. So we do need to think about different types of housing that people can afford, whether it's smaller homes or duplexes or apartments. So I appreciate that. I think that's a good time to transition into our next topic, which is kind of thinking about, what we want the vision statement for the community to look like. Oh, sorry, Susie, I just looked up and saw your hand.
So my husband and I drove through North Plains on our way home from Portland, a month ago. And can I tell you, brilliant new sidewalks and infrastructure going in where people in apartment buildings had access to their downtown. It was beautiful, complete streets. And if you were doing North Plains, well done. And that is my vision for Carleton, is to have that infrastructure. Mm-hmm.
Great. I wish I could take credit for that, but that's really their city manager who's been working at that, and their public works department. But I think it's been intentional, right?
Right. And as new subdivisions get built, those ordinances that they have in place, those codes force the developer to be paying for those sidewalks and that infrastructure and that connectivity. And that's another reason. I so agree with Anthony. Like, you just have to pony up and be willing to really invest in your community. I am so behind that. But I also think that for the privilege of building in our community, the people who are doing that building have an obligation to do some payback, to do some support for our infrastructure as they have the advantage of building in our community.
Great. Thank you, Susie. Appreciate that. Appreciate those comments, because that's really where we're headed, right? We're at the very beginning of this journey, putting together this vision, and then we get to the comprehensive plan itself, which is goals and policies, and then the third leg of this journey is taking a look at the development code and making updates to the development code. And that's just the planning work. Then comes the actual implementation work that needs to be done. So it doesn't happen overnight, but hopefully this is the start of getting to some of those things that you all want for your community, and your neighbors identify that they want for it too. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So vision format. What we want to do, go ahead, Natalie, you can go to the next slide. So just to again show how this all breaks down, we're working on the vision statement now, which is the what, and gives the overall direction for where the community wants to be in 20 years from now. And lots of times, this can be done different ways, but lots of times we write the vision as if today it's 2042, and this is what our community looks. Here's what here are what the community looks like, how it functions, what the key elements of our community are. Next slide. Then we'll be looking more at goal statements, which is the where to, so what we must achieve to get there. And then finally, go ahead to the next one, the policy direction. That's the how we get there. What are we doing to get there, to get to those specific outcomes? Next slide. So what I'm going to do here is show you a few examples of community visions from other communities, just to give you an idea. And this is certainly not exhaustive. I've seen community visions that are 2 pages long of just narrative. I've seen ones that are like bulleted lists. But here's some from communities that we've worked on in the last few years, and just for you to take them in. So this is from Redmond. You can see that their vision statement says, Redmond has effective and collaborative governance, great neighborhoods for strong communities, a business-friendly culture, a connected transportation system, a network of trails and parks, and a commitment to the natural environment. And there's about a paragraph under each of those headings that talks more about those themes. Let's go to the next slide. So this one is the city of Milwaukee. And while it contains many of those same elements, talking about housing and schools and jobs and natural features, they chose to do more of a narrative and not have those kind of headings. So kind of a 4-paragraph vision here. Next slide. This one is from the city of Sherwood, somewhat similar to Redmond, except they have more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about the same number, not quite as much of a written narrative, but they had thriving and diversified economy, attractive and attainable housing, strong community culture and heritage, coordinated and connected infrastructure, healthy and valued ecosystem, and strategic and collaborative governance. Next slide. This is the city of North Plains, because we worked on their comprehensive plan a little while ago. And they didn't have those statements as headings. They have kind of an overall vision at the top. In the year 2035, residents of North Plains enjoy a safe and welcoming community as a livable place for people of all ages. North Plains is an independent community within Washington County that maintains a small town character while we accommodate current and future residents. Citizen participation is strong, and community members can see the results of their involvement. Community gathering places and events form the heart of North Plains. And then there's these 6 kind of subvision categories, I guess you could call them: community, neighborhoods, connectivity, which I think is transportation, economic opportunity, heritage and natural resources, so historic and natural resources, and public services or infrastructure. Next one. And this is one we're working on right now for the city of Oregon City. And they've got these 4 categories of healthy and welcoming community, connected infrastructure, diverse economy, and protected environment. Let's go to the next slide, Natalie. So in a second, I'd like to get your impressions on, you know, which of those, or if there are any of those that you like better than others, or if you have other ideas on the format for a vision. And I was going to get back to this after our discussion, but I think we might as well go to it now. So if you can go to the next slide, Natalie. So just a reminder that the comprehensive plan needs to respond to statewide planning, Oregon statewide planning goals. And these are, there's a total of 19 goals, but not all of them apply to Carleton. These are the ones that apply to Carleton: citizen involvement, land use planning, natural resources, air, water, and land resources, natural hazards, recreational needs, economic development, housing, public facilities and services, transportation, energy conservation, and urbanization. And we'll talk about those more when we get to the comprehensive plan, but you could see, I think, in those vision statements, a lot of these elements kind of worked into those vision statements. Next slide, Natalie. So ultimately, and I think this is, I guess this might be Oregon City. I don't remember which one it is. Doesn't matter. Ultimately, you can see that from this table that you want your vision to guide the development of your comprehensive plan. So in this case, this table shows on the left the 4 themes that were identified in the vision. In the middle column, it's okay, under that vision theme, what are all the topics that we want it to cover? So in the case of thriving and diverse economy, in this case, they had that cover economic development, housing, urbanization, and design and development. The coordinated and connected infrastructure covered transportation, public facilities, public utilities, and energy. And then in the right column, you can see that, because this is something we need to do, is definitely address all of those statewide planning goals. And you can see where they fall in this table. So that's kind of the end game of where we're headed. Not that it looks exactly like this, but we're starting with a vision, and then we want that vision to guide our development of comprehensive plan chapters, goals, and policies that respond to these different topic areas. So let's go back up. Well, I guess, no, let's go ahead back down. Sorry, one slide past that table. So right now we have the themes and all the input from you and your neighbors on the left-hand side there. And we know that we want to, make sure that we are thinking about, the vision doesn't have to cover all the topics by any means, but we want to be thinking about these comprehensive plan or these statewide planning goals while we're developing our vision. So now's the time again where I'd like to stop talking and hear from all of you and see if you have any, either if any of those example and vision statements kind of resonated with you, if you have a different idea of what a vision statement might look like for Carleton, and any other thoughts that occur to you.
Steve, on the, because I'm just looking at this list here, on the statewide goals, are there any of those of those 14 that jump out at you from your end that we really haven't covered under our themes? In other words, we may have some potential holes there.
Yeah. And by the way, the themes can very well be the foundation of this vision statement. I thought Natalie did a good job of capturing what was said. So let's see here. Citizen involvement could easily fit into either of the first 2 themes there. Land use planning, that's a hard one though. I don't think too much about land use planning. I guess the one thing that I noticed when I was looking at this is we don't talk a lot specifically about like some of our natural features, parks, recreation, natural features of the community. I think that would be the one thing that in my mind would be missing, because economic development's covered. Housing is, I think you could cover in the preserve the small town atmosphere. public facilities and services and transportation. I think all those are covered. I think maybe to my eye, the one thing that would be missing would be, goals, 5 and 8 more than anything. And we did talk about parks. It didn't make it necessarily in a straightforward manner into the themes, but we did hear about people valuing parks. We didn't hear as much about natural features. Natalie, did you recall people talking about kind of the natural environment of Carlton?
Yeah, I think looking back, maybe that's a whole, excuse me, that's a whole lot I left. I mean, I think that there was definitely a focus on more of the like green space part of things, but there wasn't a ton of recognition or comments on like natural hazards or natural resources. Besides, there were some mentions of the agricultural community
Sure.
In Carlton, so I think that that's definitely something that could be highlighted. And then the discussion about water affordability, right? So that goes into natural resources somewhat. It's somewhat infrastructure, but also somewhat with that. So
Okay. So does that answer your question? Well, let's go back to the room real quick. I want to see if that answered the question and if they have a follow-up, and then we'll go to you, Counselor.
Yeah, I think so. Also, 3 and 4 are missing on the statewide goals. Are they not relevant or?
Yeah. So you see, we skipped 3 and 4. Are those the only ones? Yeah, those are agricultural and forest, and those are specific to county comprehensive plans because they govern the rural areas of a county. For cities, these are the urban goals that we need to pay attention to for the city of Carlton. Go ahead, Shirley.
Oh, yeah, so it didn't really come up in my, outreach meetings, but it's really a very strong goal of mine for this community is to preserve more of our natural space. For instance, we have a plot of land that's that's privately owned, but it's adjacent to our lower park, and its boundaries are the Yamhill River. And that's an example of the possibility in the future of the city acquiring that land and having it be a natural walking space, a park area for, a preserve basically that's adjacent to the park. But I think, I know that there's, emphasis on, using our available space, which some of that land is plotted for development, but in lieu of development of houses, that it's very important to preserve some of that space for our community. The natural resources, the green space, which is also environmentally sensitive next to the river, et cetera. But I didn't really hear that in my outreach, but that's definitely a high priority for me.
Thank you. Great. Catherine.
I think that people are, because it's a small town and you can look out over agricultural area, you just feel like you have green space all around you. But as development, creeps out and out, the development doesn't seem, because it's farmland, so it's flat and straight and there's no trees. Or with JR Meadows, they've cut down a whole bunch of trees, and that felt really sad to me. But I agree with Shirley that I think that as the community creeps out, we're going to really need that green space more and more, and we aren't noticing it now like we will when it's gone. You know what I mean?
Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Susie. You're on mute.
I have to reiterate them to Shirley's point and to Catherine's point. If you build it, they will come. Like the new trail, the subdivision isn't even completed yet, and there are people on that trail daily. So, and it's just a very small, the most token trail there could possibly be. But there it is, and people are using it even before there's any development. Well, there's development, they've built roads and things, but the actual trail is really used. So I think that's part of our natural resources and historic, or yeah, I think the open spaces really is part of our park system. And the Wennerberg Park, it's used extensively. There are lots of people there all the time.
Great. Catherine, do you have another comment? No. Okay. Natalie, why don't you slowly scroll back up through those vision examples? I was wondering if in the room your question about these vision themes was kind of to say that maybe we use those as those kind of topic themes for the vision, which is certainly a possibility. You know, use those.
Got a question?
Go right ahead.
Can we go back a couple of screens, please, where you had the listing?
Sure.
My question is, in this
Keep it.
context, what does urbanization mean? I'm confused.
Urbanization. Yeah, no. That's a good question. So urbanization is the statewide planning goal that oversees when cities want to grow, basically. So whether it's urban growth boundary expansion, that basically it's urban growth boundary expansion. So goals and policies under that goal 14 talk about how a community wants growth to happen, right? What type, making sure that infrastructure is in place for quality growth to happen in an efficient manner, where growth should happen, how growth should happen. That's what goal 14 governs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Are there other thoughts? Is there any particular vision that you liked from somewhere else, from one of the ones we showed, or other thoughts you have on the best way to craft, what you like and what you want the vision for Carlton to look like?
Well, I can just real quickly tell you that what I did not like Milwaukee's.
Okay.
It was just, no headlines or bullet points. This one right here. I just felt like that is never going to grab anybody to kind of really zero in on what we're looking for. So, I think I see a common theme in the other ones that you're going to kind of, it looks like maybe direct us towards anywhere from 4 to 6 points in our vision. Is that a true statement? Just like a general rule of thumb.
I mean, I think that makes sense. I believe me, if I had more examples, I'd show more. But I tend to agree with you. I think somewhere in that 4 to 6 kind of theme range can cover all the topics you want to cover, but not overwhelm a reader. But it could be 3, if you like that format where it's kind of called out a little bit. I do like North Plains's as well, where there's the kind of overall vision statement at the top, and then some of these themes or categories underneath. Yeah. Catherine?
I appreciate the vision up front, and then the principles, because that just kind of is the reinforcement of what the city is all about.
Okay. Does anyone else? Oh, go ahead, Shirley.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, to reiterate, I like the visuals of the various different categories and keeping the language within that, simple, so it's not so much narrative that you can, less is more.
Let's go up again, Natalie. I want to take a look and see if there are some that have kind of less narrative than others, because that's a lot of narrative, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of narrative, but I like the I like the headings on that one, the categories.
Go back, Natalie. Those kind of four.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know that I would say I like it better than everything else, but I just like the fact that they seem to, you can put a lot under them.
Sure. Go up to the next one, Natalie. Well, let's just talk about what we like or don't like about each of these. How about this one?
I like that. I like the photos.
I think Catherine was saying she liked the vision statement up front with the kind of principles underneath. Do
Right.
others have a comment on that either way?
I like that.
All right, let's go up to the next one. This one has a little bit, also has the vision up front and a little bit less text than maybe that the one at the bottom did with the 4 categories. A little bit shorter paragraphs. And shorter than, go ahead.
Yeah, I do like on this one here versus the one that we just looked at previously where it just had the word community. I like it here that it said what kind of community. You know, we're looking for a strong community, a strong culture. So it's actually given a sense of what direction we want to go with respect to that versus just throwing out a catchphrase.
That's helpful. So there's a little bit of description. It's not just one word, but it's not just economy. It's thriving, diversified economy, like that.
Yeah, I think the first one, it had some sort of descriptor in front of the economy. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was diverse economy or something. I don't remember. Yeah, it was diverse economy.
Yeah. And then
And
the one, if
healthy,
you go,
welcoming community, yeah.
and if you go up one, Natalie, you can see this doesn't, I mean, it's, I guess, economic opportunity, but yeah, it's not as descriptive. Let's go up again, Natalie. Again. And we didn't like that one. One more. And this is the Redmond one. This also has kind of, statements, short statements. So I guess what I'm hearing so far is that, Natalie, let's go back down to the slide with the key themes. I'm hearing a vision statement up front, followed by, those principles or those different theme areas. And it sounds like the 5 that we have here covers most of it. And maybe Natalie and I just need to work on adding a 6th one that covers, and we can play with these a little bit. Obviously, we don't have to stick to these exactly, but add one more that covers, green spaces, natural features, things of that nature. Does that resonate with folks?
Yeah, I think, definitely having that is important.
Yeah, I like adding the green spaces and natural areas.
Thumbs up from Catherine.
And the connectivity to those green spaces.
Yeah.
And natural areas, yeah. So that everyone in the community has access.
And I also, John, who's on here, has driven for, there was a bus that would drive people around to take them to different doctor's appointments and things like that, like services like that, where number 11 public facilities and services could fit in with maybe a future senior center and, all that. That's really important. And we kind of have, I don't know, lost that, that feature that was there for a while. Maybe John could talk more about that.
I could if you want. You guys are listening, so I guess I'm coming through. They had a 5013C organization that scalped a van from the county that had a lift gate out the side. And the Baptist church headquartered this, and they had volunteers in the community would drive, take people to dialysis, take them to the doctor, take them to groceries and whatever, if they didn't have wheels themselves, they'd call into they had a lady in Mac that was running the switchboard, And you had to call ahead of time, but they could arrange a ride. And I think the deal was you call 2 days ahead and they'd see if they could schedule you. And that worked pretty good, but eventually they took that away as McMinnville and the Yamhill County Transit got bigger. They just canceled that and left Carlton out here in the weeds. Sad.
That is sad.
All right, that's it.
Well, I'm gonna use that as kind of an example, because that's a good example of kind of where we are with the vision and where we're going with the rest of the process. You know, you might have in your vision a statement that says something about providing, you know, safe and frequent, you know, transportation for all residents of Carlton. Just throwing that out there as an example. That might be somewhere in your vision statement. Then when you're creating your goals, you might, for the comprehensive plan, there might be a goal that says something specifically about, you know, we have a goal to provide transit options for our senior and disabled populations or residents, right? And then we get to a policy, and the policy is going to say something much more specific, like work with the county to identify, you know, to get the resources to make this thing happen. So that's just an example of how we get from vision to goal to policy, in case that's a little bit abstract. So I think let's go ahead, Natalie, to the next part of our conversation here, because I think we have some pretty good direction from you all on you know, what we need to do to take what we have today and start to translate it into a vision statement. But we want to talk about the Vision Summit a little bit, the Envision Carlton Summit. So hopefully you all are aware, and if not, you'll be getting a postcard in the mail soon, and it's on the project website and in the city newsletter. But our summit is on June 1st, 6 p.m. at the Carlton Fire District Hall. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off sharing the results of the outreach that we shared with you all today. So we'll do that same kind of presentation and talk about here's what we did and here's what we heard from the community. Then we'll have kind of a little bit more fleshed out vision statement that you know, we'll take what we had today, those themes, we'll build off them a little bit and have something a little more substantial for people to, you know, review and say, we like this, we don't like that, get rid of this, change this statement. You know, not too much wordsmithing, more just making sure we have all the right themes for the vision. And then the last part of that meeting is going to be sitting down and talking about these topic areas and getting to some more details, which eventually will kind of help us finish up drafting the vision, but also give us a bunch of ideas for goals, which is the next step in the process, is to develop those goals. So folks sitting at a table will, can you go back up to the themes again? You know, we might have preserve the small town atmosphere, and underneath that, I'll list citizen involvement and housing. Just for example, let's say just those two. So people in a small group will sit down and say, okay, what do we want for the future of this community for housing? What do we want to say about community involvement? And just start brainstorming ideas that we'll then share back with the whole group at the end of the meeting. So that's the basic kind of structure of what we're thinking about for this summit. Now, Amy, do you have any more? Oh, John, did you have something?
No, I coughed.
Oh.
I actually do preserve the small town atmosphere. I wondered if there are any stated limitations to the outbuild of Carlton. That would be a goal I'd like to see. Like by the year 2040, you know, we pledged not expand more than 3% total from now till 2040.
That one's a little tricky because, and I don't know if there are limitations for this for size of community. Maybe Amy knows more, but there are state goals that require cities to maintain a 20-year supply of land for housing and jobs. So I don't know if that's possible, but we can continue to talk about that and look into that and talk, have conversations about that goal 14, urbanization. When and how does Carleton want to grow in the future? But Amy, let's talk just a moment about logistics for this meeting. So you said, so we're in the fire district hall, and there's two things that maybe you can help us talk about a little bit, Amy. My first one is, what happens if a whole lot of people show up? I know you said, and I don't know how Carleton works. I haven't held a public meeting in Carleton before, but that room probably holds at the most like 40 people. So what do we do if a whole bunch of people show up?
We do have some options. The room does open up to the sidewalk space outside, so we can funnel people through if we need.
Okay.
The other option would be there is a connecting hallway. We can put people that opens up to the room. We can open the door. We do have some flexibility. There's actually an attached kitchen with an open bar walk-through or buffet area. I would be happy to be in the kitchen to save space. So there is some options, and if we don't set up tables and we just use chairs, we have way more flexibility in how we can fit and squeeze people in.
Great.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Amy, when we had the meeting at the fire hall regarding the Highway 47 realignment, we used the truck bay. Is that possible if needed?
We did use the truck bay the last time. The only complication now is Oregon law requires that all public meetings be recorded for virtual attendance. We have no way to do that in the truck bay. It wasn't a requirement at that time, so we were able to kind of make it work. But at this time, I have to have a camera on broadcasting, so it makes it a little tricky.
Yeah, that was going to be my second thing, Amy, or just to let everybody know that there is this requirement now, and it's a little bit vague in terms of how it needs to be implemented, but it says that any meeting the public's invited to in person, you need to have some sort of online or phone type option. If people are invited to speak or give written comments at the meeting, then they should be afforded that opportunity via technology, online or phone or what have you, as well. So this is brand new and is kind of breaking my brain in terms of the way I used to want to really design fun in-person meetings. And believe me, I've appreciated the fact that I can meet with you and still put my daughter to bed tonight. But trying to run hybrid meetings with a whole lot of people is really challenging. And we're all, as public involvement practitioners, we're all figuring out how to do this right now. And I think we're going to have, it's going to be a little rocky for a while, but we're doing the best we can. So Amy, you and I, once you figure out kind of what you and I we're meeting tomorrow to talk more about how we're going to do both of these things. But that's the basic activities that we're hoping to engage in during the summit. Was someone saying something? Okay, I felt I cut someone off. Amy, did you have anything else to add to that, my little spiel about the meeting?
No, but we will have cookies for Mr. request.
I'm bringing cookies, I guess.
So if folks can, like we said, a postcard, we just put them in the mail. Well, they're getting shipped to the post office today. When do we expect them to hit homes, Natalie?
Not sure, hopefully quickly.
Okay.
It's supposed to be, the postage is paid, as soon as they get it, they should distribute it along the 3 routes within Carleton and slightly outside of it, so.
So hopefully, by early next week, they'll hit everyone's home. So we'd encourage you to, oh, I should have mentioned the other thing that we'll do is we'll have an online questionnaire. So if people want to either participate online, and if we can't engage them in our conversations, if we want them to, they'll have an opportunity to fill out that questionnaire to share their questions and comments. So that's one way that they can participate virtually. And if the meeting's recorded, they can do those things later as well. You know, a week down the road, they can watch the recording, fill out the questionnaire, and we'll take all of that into account. So please encourage your friends and neighbors to participate in one way or another. We'd love to get as many people involved as possible. Any other questions about our plans for the summit?
Just a question, Steve, just a little bit about really just the process itself. As you're working on these proposed vision themes, can you just let us know as a group what our role is in this? Or are we kind of going to just be a community participant with respect to the brainstorming, or do we have an opportunity if we've got any feedback on the vision themes to give, or how exactly do you see this unrolling?
So at the summit itself, I would encourage you, I mean, you'll be more in the know, so to speak, than your neighbors. So if there's an opportunity to share, what you heard in your conversations, through this community engagement process, that would be welcome. We also will probably break, I'm still trying to figure this out because it's a somewhat small room, but our plan was to break into a few small group discussions rather than one large group, so more people get to speak. If I see you all there, I might I might spread you out in the small groups so you can help. Not that you would have to facilitate that conversation, but maybe be the note taker or just kind of observer of those. But I do want you participating for sure in the brainstorm exercise. That's definitely something we want. We don't want you to feel like you have to hold back your comments because you're on this committee. You are members of the Carleton community, and we need to hear your thoughts and opinions as well. And what I'd like to do then is after the summit, we don't have another meeting scheduled for a little while, but what I'd like to do is maybe whether it's through email or we always could schedule another meeting, but I would be before we go to, we're planning on going to City Council with the vision in July. I would like you all to have your hands on the vision one more time before we do that. So whether it's, hey, Natalie and I email you the draft vision for you to give us your comments, or we throw it up on an online survey where you can give your comments. Actually, I think email would be either an in-person or a virtual meeting or an email, because I want you all to see each other's comments. But I want you all to have your eyes and thoughts on it one more time before July. So let's go to the next step slide, Natalie. Sorry, I'm rambling. I even put that in here. So here we are today, PAC meeting number 2. We have our summit on June 1st. That's the gold star there. And then in June, I really want us to focus on you reviewing and helping finalize this vision before. And Amy, do you know when in July? It's that purple diamond is the City Council review of the vision. We had thought it would be in June, but it's moved out to July. Do you know the date on that, Amy?
Council meets the first Tuesday in July, so it's going to be early, like first, second, third, that ballpark.
Perfect. So we'll pretty much have the most of the month of June, or at least let's say the second half of June through the 4th of July or so, to really finalize this vision. So that, I don't know if that answered your question, and maybe I was just trying to communicate what I wanted to, but that's what we're thinking in terms of process between now and July. And then after we go to council with that vision, we begin to develop the comprehensive plan, goals, and policies. So I hope that answered your question. So those are the things we wanted to accomplish today. We walked through the results of community engagement. We looked at other examples of visions to kind of see what speaks to you all and what resonates in terms of what you want the Carleton vision to be. And we talked a little bit about the summit, what we have coming up on June 1st. Is there anything else that any of you want to weigh in on, or thoughts you want to share, questions you want to ask? Shirley.
Yeah, a question, just like if you can, a little preview of once the comprehensive plan is drafted and we move towards adoption of it, at what point and how do we move into the development code phase? Or is it too premature to even talk about that?
No, I mean, it's going to be a real, so all of you who volunteered for this committee, I believe we told you it was a year commitment, because the vision and the comprehensive plan are very much tied together. We go from vision to goals to policies. I think, not speaking for Amy or the city, but after this process, the year-long process is over, we'll move on to the development code, and you'll be welcome to continue to participate on this pack if you'd like. But we're also going to want to get some different expertise in terms of people who deal with the code a lot.
Right.
Not that you all don't, but just some additional, maybe a housing developer or
very technical. Yeah.
So, and then that'll be another, I can't remember, I want to say 9-month process, where what we do is we do an audit of the code. And we have a conversation with you all, which we had a preliminary one with Amy, but we have a conversation to find out what you see are the issues that you're having with the code. Then we go in and do an audit of all the different chapters of the code based on, seeing where maybe in certain cases they're not meeting state requirements, but also where they're not, they're not achieving the goals that you want to achieve. We need to be looking to the comprehensive plan guidance and make sure that the code is aligned with the guidance from the comprehensive plan. So we do this audit. We share that with you and with the community and say, okay, here are the places where we see gaps or things that need to be revised. And we then have a discussion about that and make proposals for how the code could be revised or updated. And then we dig in and do that work of writing the code or updating the code.
Okay. Is this adoption phase, does that include review and approval by the state of
For
Oregon?
the comprehensive plan, yes, it does.
How long does that usually take?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. I can't remember right now. I don't. There are some not even guidelines, requirements in how long the state has to review and make a determination on the comp plan, but I can't off the top of my head remember what that is. Yeah. I can certainly, Natalie and I can have that information for you the next time we talk.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts you want to share tonight? All right. Well, I want to thank, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, these slides you were showing us tonight, because I missed that about the summary that was in the packet. Is this in the packet, these slides?
The slides aren't, but we'll make a PDF of this and send it to Amy so she can send it out to you all.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And we'll post it, she can post it to the website as well. We should probably post the one from the first meeting as well, Amy, if you think of that. But anyway, again, great job both in the, reaching out to your neighbors. We really got a lot of participation, as Natalie explained. Thanks for your great thoughts today. It's really going to help us take the next step in terms of this drafting this community vision. And I hope to see you all on the evening of June 1st. Can't wait to make a trip back to Carleton. It's been a little while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.